Morant with a running start. Elevate! Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness!
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! John Morant! Insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. Derrick Rose has retired from the NBA. That ends up being the answer for what's going on with Derrick Rose. Of course, earlier this week, we got the breaking news that the Grizzlies were waiving Derrick at his request. Now we know, in fact, Derrick Rose is ending his NBA career after playing one season on the Grizzlies, after playing over 700 career regular season games. So on this episode, we're going to talk about the Derrick Rose retirement. I'm going to talk about the Grizzlies roster situation, some players they might look at, going to talk about the luxury tax implications. Also, there's other news to go over, including a date has been set for Tony Allen's jersey retirement. The Grizzlies have a jersey patch sponsor for the first time in 3 seasons. Plus, they actually officially released those sweet throwback jerseys. So there's a lot to get to. But before we get there, just a word from SeatGeek. If you're looking for tickets for any event that sells tickets, check out the secondary market on SeatGeek. They have an easy-to-use color-coded map that lets you know when you're getting a great deal on tickets. Also, if you're a first-time user and use my promo code FASTBreakBreak, that's same as my Twitter and Instagram handle, FASTBreakBreak, SeatGeek will give you $20 off that first ticket purchase. All right, let's start again with Derrick Rose. He, of course, is the youngest MVP in league history, a 3-time All-Star, and he hangs it up. Last season on the Grizzlies, it maybe wasn't exactly what we hoped for from Derrick. He was brought in, I think, to be mainly a locker room leader, and there is some angle that he did that, and you could say mission accomplished there. The timing of this all continues to be maybe the weirdness. I think you could infer that maybe he was gearing up for training camp and decided, okay, I just don't have it. Like, that's one imaginary scenario that could have happened. Perhaps, again, just guessing, maybe there was some physical setback, which would explain, again, the odd timing. Because for the Grizzlies, this is bad timing. With this news coming right before training camp, at the end of free agency. Like, if you knew Derrick Rose wasn't going to play this season, maybe it would have been better to be involved in free agency this off season. Would you have made the moves you made if you knew you were losing Derrick Rose? We talked about this in the last episode with Drew Hill. Would the Grizzlies still have waived and stretched Mamadi Diakite if they knew Derrick Rose was leaving? Would they still have salary dumped Zaire? I would think probably, because Zaire was moving his way out of the rotation, and still, even with Derrick Rose's money off the books, they would still be in the luxury tax if they kept Zaire. But the financial element to this, it is important, and we found out some more details. When this news first broke from Shams Charania that he was being waived, some of the questions were financial because the Grizzlies, are up against the luxury tax, and we wanted to know if his guaranteed money was going to stay on the books. Well, after that news broke, then Ian Begley said there's going to be a buyout. Drew Hill confirmed it. There's going to be some sort of buyout. Then Tim McMahon was the first person I saw to report that Derrick Rose is giving up all of his salary for the upcoming season. So he retires, and he's not going to get paid at all. So he's completely off the Grizzlies' books. Now, removing ourselves from maybe the poor timing in the offseason, this is actually pretty good for the Grizzlies' on-court product, I think. Derrick Rose retiring, giving up his roster spot while also not causing you any financial hardships. Overall, that's good. Again, except for the fact that it came at the end of the offseason when there aren't that many good players available. So with Derrick Rose forfeiting the last year of his deal, he joins Yuta Watanabe as the second Grizzlies player this offseason to say no thank you to guaranteed money to play on the Grizzlies. I'm almost certain this is the first time in franchise history 2 players with guaranteed money said, nope, I'm good. I don't want it. But with Derrick's money coming off the books, that brings the Grizzlies' total salaries for the 13 players on standard contracts to approximately $165 million. The luxury tax line is close to $171 million. So as far as I can tell, the Grizzlies are about $6 million away from the luxury tax line with 13 guys on guaranteed deals. So repeating myself from the last episode, that means now the Grizzlies can sign a veteran on a minimum contract and then still have room under the luxury tax line to promote one of their two-way guys to sign a cheaper minimum contract. We all think it's most likely going to be Scottie Pippen Jr. at some point. Also, I'm contractually obligated to point out the Grizzlies are allowed to go over the luxury tax line. The Grizzlies now, by the way, hear this, they are about $13 million away from the first apron, meaning they can now use their full mid-level exception. They can use the entire Steven Adams traded player exception. They can take back the salary of a guy making up to $12 million or so without sending out any other salary. And that's legal. That works. Of course, it would require the team to pay luxury tax. So wrapping up Derrick's career, or wrapping up Derrick's role on the Grizzlies, he appeared in 24 games for the Grizzlies last season. The Grizzlies were only 6-18 in those games. Fun fact, the Grizzlies won the first 3 games that Derrick Rose started last season. He did finish 3-4 as a starter. He had a season-high 19 points in a loss to the Rockets. Maybe his best game of the season was at the end of November against the Jazz. He had 14 points and 9 assists in a victory. A little bit of trivia. He finished with 191 total points on the Grizzlies. That is 13 more points than Justice Winslow scored on the Grizzlies. 16 more than Killian Tilly. He finished up 1 point short of Kobe Simmons' career totals. 7 points fewer than Josh Jackson's career totals on the Grizzlies. So, 13 players under contract, $6 million under the luxury tax line now. I think it's useful to look at the depth chart once again. When I look at the depth chart, it doesn't scream to me that we need a backup point guard. I mean, I think, again, Scottie Pippen Jr., even if he's not promoted off that two-way anytime soon, can totally function as your backup point if you specifically need a backup point. I still maintain with the makeup of this roster with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart, and then also, say, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams Jr., John Conchar, you can do point guard by committee. Maybe Marcus Smart has not been the best backup point for the Grizzlies, but still, the guy can dribble. The guy can set up players, and between him and Desmond Bane, I think you can have it covered. I think the issue of need or the area of need in the roster is still maybe a 3 or a 4 or a 5, especially with G.G. Jackson's injury. It feels a little bit light on the wing, but maybe they do still want to find some kind of straight backup point guard. I think it's interesting to look at some of the free agents who are still out there. Again, not that many good players because free agency is over, but like Markelle Fultz is still available. Markelle Fultz is a good basketball player. Markelle Fultz's weakness is he can't shoot three-pointers, really. I don't know if Markelle Fultz makes a ton of sense on the Grizzlies, but that's the best player you could absolutely sign who's still available. I don't know if he would even accept a minimum contract. Technically, the Grizzlies could pay him a little bit more than a minimum contract if they wanted to. But like, if the Grizzlies signed Markelle Fultz, yeah, it would be bad for Scottie Pippen Jr.'s playing time, but I like that a lot. That's a proven defender, kind of a jack of all trades, good basketball player. Now, I don't think the Grizzlies are actually going to sign anyone that quickly unless it is Scottie Pippen Jr. I think what probably makes the most sense, based on the timing of the offseason, is to go into training camp, figure out what you have, and then also look at other teams and find out which players aren't making the final rosters. Because there are a lot of players who might be interesting to the Grizzlies who are on like Exhibit 10 contracts. As far as guys who are totally not on a roster right now, I think it's like Markelle Fultz. You might look at O'Shea Brissett, who's kind of like a undersized 4. I mean, Davis Bertans, the Latvian laser, I'd be interested. A better shooting Santi Aldama. I mean, he doesn't have the playmaking of Santi Aldama, but a 6'10" guy who's just a gunner. That's interesting to me. You can look at Jay Crowder. Jay and Ja Morant got along famously well in Ja's rookie season. Would you want that as kind of a veteran presence, a guy who doesn't have to play every night but could play a position of need, could possibly start at the 3 or the 4 in a pinch for you? Then also a guy like Doug McDermott still available. If you wanted a big, there's Cody Zeller. But there are players on training camp deals who I think might get cut, who could be useful. The guys I'm keeping an eye on would be someone like Lonnie Walker. Lonnie Walker, probably the best player who's not going to end up on a roster. I don't think he's going to make the Celtics final regular season roster. You look at a guy like Kevin Knox, maybe in Portland, Delano Banton or Devontae Graham. One of those guys is not making the Trailblazers opening night roster. Talen Horton-Tucker, I mentioned him with Drew. I forgot he's on an Exhibit 10 with the Bulls. Is he going to make the Bulls final roster? I like Talen Horton-Tucker. He is a combo guard with great size. He can do a little bit of everything except make three-pointers. I mean, that's the issue. Guys available now are some of the weird ones who can't really shoot. But like, I'd be totally fine with the Grizzlies signing Talen Horton-Tucker. You can look at like someone like Landry Shamet, who might not make the Knicks. A different position, someone like Chuma Okeke. Again, good defender, good size for a wing, bad shooter. That could make sense for the Grizzlies. Also, I think, again, the path forward for the Grizzlies, wait and see who becomes available. Also, you might be in the situation where you can take a player from another team that's already under contract that is trying to get rid of a player. Maybe you could pick up an asset in that situation. You might look at teams that are a little bit into the luxury tax right now. A team like the Pelicans or maybe the Warriors or the Mavs, like teams that are trying to maybe shed money, and you say, we can take that guy back for you and you give us a second-round pick or 2. Now, the situation with the Grizzlies, if you're determined to stay under the luxury tax line, you would hope that player coming in is someone who you deem to be useful for your team because you do not have a lot of wiggle room under the luxury tax line. But still, they could go over the luxury tax line. What if the Warriors are like, listen, we desperately want to get out of the tax. We want to end the repeater clock. Would you just take Kevon Looney for free? The Grizzlies could accept Kevon Looney for free. It just means they would start paying tax. And again, when you go back to the timing of this, which is so important, if the Grizzlies knew Derrick Rose was not coming back in July, they could have said at that point, hey, we are, in fact, going to be $13 million away from the first apron. This is with retaining Luke Kennard. Another angle is, what if the Luke Kennard negotiations were, hey, we're not going to pick up your player option, but we will pay you everything we can while still maintaining enough salary flexibility under the luxury tax line to add 2 more players. And Luke's representation was like, okay, that works. It'll be $9.5 million. But now after Derrick Rose gets out, that number's more. Like, could they have paid Luke Kennard more money? I don't know. But going back to July, if you knew Derrick Rose wasn't coming back, if you knew you could keep Luke Kennard and still be $13 million away from the first apron, would you have been aggressive in free agency? Would you have been aggressive and using your mid-level exception? Would you have pursued some of the players who signed for less than the mid-level exception? Would you have gone after someone like Derrick Jones Jr. or Isaac Okoro or Najee Marshall or Buddy Hield or Gogo Batadze or Jalen Smith or Kyle Anderson or Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre or Simone Fontecchio or Malik Beasley? Like, if you knew you were going to be $13 million away from the first apron, would you have gotten the green light from ownership to spend into the tax? Because right now, still 13 players on the roster on standard NBA contracts. You got 2 roster spots. Would you have gotten permission to go into the tax if you had known all of this beforehand? So while Derrick Rose retiring and not taking any money this season helps the Grizzlies, I think, on the basketball court. I only include that caveat because I've been told he helps the Grizzlies off the basketball court. Like, all of that's good except for the fact that we don't know what the opportunity cost was by not having this information earlier. But anyways, that kind of closes the book on Derrick. I'm curious if he wished he could have controlled the narrative for this retirement. Like, did the news breaking mess up what he wanted to do? Because Derrick posted on Instagram about his retirement. He took out full-page newspaper ads in Memphis and in Cleveland and in Chicago and in Detroit, thanking the fan bases in those cities. So Derrick retires. Best of luck with whatever is next for him. Now for the Grizzlies, again, the question is, what is next for this roster and how quickly do they move? I've spelled out why I don't think you're in a rush to promote Scottie Pippen Jr. One of the angles where I would be fine with go ahead and promoting Scottie Pippen Jr., one of the benefits to doing that is then you could put Malginha Pereira on a 2-way. And you know I love Malginha Pereira. And I think in that situation, you feel pretty good about your guard rotation. If Scottie is on the regular contract, a standard contract, you have him to be your backup point guard. Doesn't have to play every night because you can, I think, handle backup point by committee between Desmond Bane and Vince and Luke Kennard and Marcus Smart. But then you have your 2-way spots going to Cam Spencer, Malginha Pereira, and Jay Huff. And I think Jay Huff and Pereira will be used, I think, a lot. They will actually be important front court rotation pieces. And I like the way Pereira fits alongside, maybe he fits alongside Edey just because he's like a strange enough piece, sort of like a Larry Nance Jr. I can imagine that working, and maybe that makes you feel better about your front court depth if you get another big on the 2-way. So that could be an angle where the Grizzlies do go ahead and promote Scottie Pippen Jr. But we will wait and see. We might get answers about this stuff very, very quickly. Now, in other Grizzlies news, the team announced their promotional schedule, and the biggest part of that is they announced the date for Tony Allen's jersey retirement. Tony Allen, perhaps my favorite NBA player ever, finally gets the date. It's going to be March 15th. Now, this date has been delayed because of Tony Allen's off-the-court legal issues. All that got cleared up. So finally, Tony will get his jersey retired. It's a Saturday night, a home game against the Miami Heat. It's going to be a great, I think, weekend for us out-of-town fans to travel. They play the Cavaliers the night before, so you have a Friday, Saturday home back-to-back. I'm sure it'll be a great reunion. You're sure Zebo's going to be there. I don't know if Mike Conley's going to be able to be there. I would guess he would try to because the Timberwolves don't actually play that day. They have home games on the 14th and the 16th. So I could imagine Mike Conley, much like he did for Marc Gasol, flying there to make it there for this special occasion. So it's going to be a special night for all Grizzlies fans, especially those who were around during the grit and grind era as the team honors one of its best all-time players and one of its best all-time characters. Anyways, let's take a quick break, and then there is some more news to get to wrap up the show. We'll do that right after this short break. All right, there's just a few more things to get to. Also, I guess I could throw out a few more names for possible guys to look at with your open roster spots. You guys remember that report that the Grizzlies were interested in trading for Killian Hayes? Well, Killian Hayes might be available. I don't think he's making a roster anywhere. Also, Kennedy Chandler. He just got waived. I don't actually think they're pursuing those guys. Guys from last year, like Lamar Stevens is still available. Jalen Newell is on the Wizards for a training camp deal. That could be someone you look at. I'm not really sure. I still think maybe a 3 or a 4 would be better for the Grizzlies. Maybe this is Lamar Stevens' chance. I've been telling people all offseason, there's no way he's coming back. He's an undersized 4/3 who can't shoot. He doesn't pass. Absolutely not what the Grizzlies need. But at this point, you need another body at some point. I mean, you can go into the regular season with 13 guys. I think you just have 2 weeks to fill that final 14th spot with a main roster player. Anyways, the Grizzlies finally officially announced the team's throwback jerseys. They had a nice little video announcing that. The beautiful white Vancouver throwbacks looking very, very good. They are going to wear them on their first home game on October 26th as they host the Orlando Magic. So that's going to be very cool to see. The Grizzlies got a jersey sponsor, Robinhood, the stock trading app most famous for the GameStop stock scandal. But Robinhood is going to be the team's jersey sponsor. So there were these bright green logos on all jerseys this year. The Memphis Hustle, as I run through the news items, the Memphis Hustle named a new coach. T.C. Swirsky will be the coach of the Hustle. I don't know much about him other than he's the son of a mutual Twitter follower, Chuck Swirsky, who covers the Bulls. T.C. Swirsky going to be the Memphis Hustle's coach. And finally, this is some non-news sort of, but the Diamond Sports bankruptcy hit a little twist where Amazon dropped out as one of the potential investors. Apparently, Amazon had a $115 million offer on the table for 8 months that they would pitch in for Diamond Sports Group, the owner of Bally's, to help them out of bankruptcy. Amazon pulled that offer. Now, Diamond is saying they're totally fine. They're still on schedule to emerge from bankruptcy. They're still on schedule to carry 13 NBA teams' games this year. That includes the Grizzlies. But this process is moving slowly. The Grizzlies have made no official announcement about Bally's being the official TV provider for the Grizzlies this year. So I don't know if Amazon dropping out has slowed it even more. If you believe Diamond Sports Group when they say, no, we have other investors, that's not a problem. I mean, there's a preseason game in 11 days for the Grizzlies. Where will that be televised? We don't actually officially know. It seemed a little bit safer that it was all going to happen when Amazon was there to backstop the bankruptcy, but Amazon has pulled out. Diamond Sports still saying they're going to make their initial payments to teams. There was an anonymous team source, I don't know from which team, saying, we're not worried about the first payment, we're worried about the last payment. So the TV stuff is still up in the air, but I assume it's all going to work out just fine. And with that, I think we can wrap up the show. In summary, Derrick Rose has retired. The Grizzlies have 2 open roster spots. They're about $6 million from the luxury tax line, about $14 million away from the first apron. There aren't a lot of clear and obvious free agents out there to fill those spots, so the Grizzlies might be in a wait-and-see mode. And then we got new jerseys. We got a new jersey sponsor, and I will see you guys in Memphis on March 15th for the Tony Allen retirement ceremony. And, of course, Media Day is coming up on Monday, and then training camp occurs in Nashville next Tuesday through Thursday. I'm excited to say I will be able to cover some of that. They are coming towards me, so I should be able to go to a lot of the media availabilities they have for that, and I'll give you all of my observations and analysis then, so make sure you're subscribed to Grits and Grinds on my YouTube page, also on whatever podcast app you prefer. Also, if you want to support this program and get access to exclusive bonus content, if you want to play fantasy basketball with me, if you want to join the Slack channel of other Grizzlies fans and listeners, you can do all that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. For $5 a month, you get all of those benefits. So if you like the show, consider helping out over there, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.